So when I got up this morning, it was 28 degrees out here. It's warmed up since then. But the weather is cooling off, and it's predicting that it's just going to get cooler and cooler, and it's, you know, almost November. And so it's time to make sure that the pump house is ready to go. So weather's getting cooler, and I need to make sure that my pump house, that stores all my pressure tank and my wellhead and all the piping that goes to my home, need to make sure it stays nice and warm this whole winter. And so what I do is I use lights. Now this pump house that I built, I gotta admit, I stole it from my dad. It's real simple to make. It's a 4x4 pump house that's just 2x4 framed, and the walls are all insulated with R19, and then the roof is insulated with R30, and it just lifts off, and then the walls can all be taken apart, so that way it is completely accessible if you need to get a well rig in here or pull your pump or anything like that. If you haven't seen it yet, last week I had a leak inside of my pump house, and so I had to troubleshoot and figure out where the water leak was coming from and then fix it. And you can watch that video. You click on the link above on the screen here. Let me show you how this pump house kind of works. So as you can see, you might be able to see that I've got it screws, so I can screw this shut to seal it up completely. I don't need to do that most of the time because the way it's designed, it just stays in there itself. But if I know it's going to get like -20 or something like that, I can seal it up even more and help keep the heat inside. But it's got a couple handles. Just lean it back, pull it off, set it off to the side. The base of the pump house is real simple. All I did is I took cinder blocks, turned them on their side, and outlined a 4-foot by 4-foot square area. I squared up the blocks, made sure they were nice and level. Then I built a simple frame to go on top, 2x4s laid on their side with plywood on top. Cut it out for the wellhead and for the water line and for the power. So you can see here, it's just a simple construction on this pump house. 2x4 construction framing, and then plywood on the inside, and then plywood on the outside, with the R19 in between. And you can see that the plywood on the outside overlaps, so that way I'll overlap the framing on the sides. The roof is a simple construction. All I used was 2x8s, left the front end a true 2x8, which, well, 7.5, and then on the back end I took 1.5 inches, drew lines with my square, and just ripped it with a saw. And then I just simply put some plywood on top of it, tar paper, and some metal roofing that I had. And a couple of things I've done out here for safety reasons is the outlets I put inside of my pump house are GFI, ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI I should say. And so that's a safety precaution in itself. I've got a breaker box right here, and of course it's got its own ground right here by the pump house. Last week when I had my water problem, I had water everywhere, as you can kind of see by the discoloration. But what I did, like I said in the video, I went and put a box fan in here, plugged it in, and let it run for about 3 days to make sure I dried up all that moisture the best I could. And of course, it worked great. So I've got two different types of light bulbs. Let me start with the base. Real simple. I just bought a fixture base at the hardware store and a cheap extension cord. It's a 2-prong with one of them being the fatter end. And then I just went and I bought some light bulb bases, wired it up, and that's pretty much it. I used two different types of light bulbs because a regular incandescent light bulb is hard to find. I've got this one here, which is a 100-watt rough service bulb, and it puts out quite a bit of heat, especially if it's going to be really cold. It's going to put out a lot of heat. But if it's just if the weather's not so bad and it doesn't get below 0, you can use this style here to actually put out quite a bit of heat. The thing I've done is I put my thermometer on here. I want to make sure that this gets down to ambient temperature, which is the same temperature outside here. And then I'm going to put these in here and I'm going to plug them in, and I'll show you what it does to the inside temperature. Okay, so I got 3 lights going in there, and I kind of space them out and place them in spots where it will put heat towards the piping. I did move my thermometer so that it's out of the way. It's not close to that one light. So now we'll close it up and I'll come back in a little bit and see how it's doing. Okay, right now it is 42 degrees. Okay, so it's been a half hour. Let's check it out. And it's jumped 10 degrees in a half an hour. Well, as you can see, it's a simple and effective way of keeping heat inside your pump house. It doesn't cost me more than $5 a month. And of course, I'm only running it about 4 months out of the whole year, depending on the year. Some years, maybe 6. It doesn't cost much for the materials or supplies to do it. So if you have any comments or questions about this pump house or anything in this video, just leave them in the comments below.